My name is Julian, for those who don't know me, but I like to be called Juli, so short for Julian. So Juli. And I come from Bogota in Colombia in South America. And I usually put a picture of Bogota in these presentations, but today I want to show something different. So you know the story about the Spanish conquistadors that came and raided our gold and whatever. I'm not gonna get political here, but this is some of the stuff that still remains in Colombia, which is the balsa muisca, which is a very beautiful gold mini sculpture, super cool. But what I'm about to say is that they actually didn't take all of the best golden things from Colombia. They didn't take empanadas. So these are empanadas. These are like very incredibly delicious corn fritters filled with amazing stuff. We have them all across Latin America. Colombian ones are corn-based, but others are flour-based, like wheat-based, like wrapped in wheat, and they look like this inside. And there is a good place here to have empanadas. So if you are ever in Melbourne and want to have empanadas, hit me up. It's in the city. It's a really nice place. So I work at Block now, which was which acquired Afterpay recently, and I work in Money by Afterpay, which is an app built to get on top of your finances and create financial wellness for people. But today we're going to talk about not that app, but building apps with Turbo and Stimulus, and why SSR is cool again and it's making a comeback. So you probably heard maybe in recent months about Hotwire. So Hotwire is a nice I can't remember the word for this, but it stands for HTML over the wire. So what does this mean? This means that HTML is the main transport medium of your application. So there is this concept of HTML first architectures versus JavaScript first architectures. And this guy, Jared White, summed it up pretty well, where the main medium of transport for JavaScript first applications, it's usually JSON, right? But the main medium of transport for HTML architecture applications is HTML. And why is this distinction important? Because most people tend to say that a single page application is only based on transporting JSONs across the web and rendering stuff in the front end, but it's not really the case. You can build single page applications with HTML as your transport medium. And that is what this talk is all about. And this is actually not so new. So in 2012, there was PJAX by GitHub, not GitHub, but GitHub adopted PJAX as a way to render HTML from the server and just swap little bits of the HTML when the response came in. And in the Rails community, we adopted turbolinks. And I know when the turbolinks word comes up, everyone's like, yeah, I know turbolinks, I hate it. And this is what we all did a few years ago. Let's skip turbolinks forever, important, true all the time. I know it's like some people had a rough time. I actually embraced it fully in my first 2 jobs. So I sort of skipped the whole JSON as a transfer medium or JavaScript like based applications. And to be honest, turbolinks was a little bit ahead of its time. And that's why it was so disruptive when it first came in, same as PJAX. And the thing is, it's based on a concept called mutation first development. Or maybe not a concept, but this guy in this article that you can go read sums it up in this term, like mutation first development. And sum it up, the premise of this is, at that time, the main event that you used to wire up your interaction was document load, right? So when the document loaded, when you navigated from one page to another, then your JavaScript started kicking in. PJAX and turbolinks said, maybe there are other types of bringing stuff into the DOM. And maybe the main event that you need to track is not document load, but probably other events. And this was a little bit ahead of its time and broke the behavior of many libraries at the time. And that's why TurboLinks was so hard to adopt, because it surfaced the problem with the current library ecosystem that depended 100% on the document being loaded. I'm not gonna get more technical about this. You can go read it in this article. It's a pretty good article. I strongly recommend it if you want to try this set of technologies. But today we're going to talk about, again, Hotwire to build HTML first architecture applications, or just serving HTML from your server. And one thing to note, very important, is that Hotwire is not Ruby based. It's pure JavaScript, sorry. So you can use Hotwire and all its libraries with any backend framework. And there are already implementations for Laravel and for Django and many, and I think Go as well. So check that out, because it's pure JavaScript and any backend language can adopt it and framework can adopt it. So Hotwire, it's comprised of 3 different libraries: Turbo, Stimulus, and the upcoming Strata. I'm not going to talk about Strata today because I don't actually know what it is or how it will work, but it's what I've heard is that it's going to be pretty interesting to bridge the gap between native and the web. But that's coming in a few months. So let's start with Turbo. Turbo, it's sort of the spiritual successor of TurboLinks. And Turbo does 3 things. It handles navigation, it handles decomposing your UI, and it handles live page changes. And these 3 things map to 3, let's say, concepts within the library, which is Turbo Drive, Turbo Frames, and Turbo Streams, right? So going back, navigation for Drive, the composition is taken care of by frames, and live page changes taken care of by streams. It's a lot of terms, a lot of stuff. I'm going to get into some examples so we can all learn what this is. So Turbo Drive. Turbo Drive allows you to navigate with a persistent process. What does this mean? This means that whenever you navigate, you don't do a full page refresh. We're going to just swap the body of the current page with the new body from the incoming response. So how does that look like? Let's say you have this page, right? It's an HTML page with a few meta tags, a title, and a link, right? Take a look at the meta tags. They're like 1 and 2. This is going to become important in a sec, because when the response comes from the server, server is going to look at the head, and it's going to say, okay, is there anything new in the head? Any new scripts or any new style sheets? Yes, I'm going to execute them. And then it's going to say, there's a new body. Cool, I'm going to swap the previous body for the new body. So that means that if before we're in page 1, this is now page 2 with a whole new body, but we didn't do a full page refresh. So there's no blinking of the page when you navigate from one to the other. It all happens in a single persistent process, just as a single page application. That's where the whole discussion of SPA versus JavaScript first applications, HTML applications. This is an example of a single page application, but with HTML as the main transport medium. So let's look at a little bit of a demo that I set up. Okay, so I'm going to play this video just for an example. And I'm going to scroll a bunch of stuff here, maybe scroll over here, and I'm going to click on one of these. So these are in this app. Maybe I should introduce the app. This app is a Twitch clone. Very rough. You're going to see, I'm going to show you the code later on. But these are just live streams, and you can navigate to different live streams. So if I click to any of these links, what's going to happen is that it's going to perform a navigation. So the body is going to get swapped. I'm going to lose all the state that I currently have in this page. So any scroll, it's going to get lost. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to click. And as you can see, it's a whole page navigation. right? Handled by Turbo Drive, so within the persistent process. So there's no like full page reload, but again, it's just the whole thing like navigating, just the whole page. This is what you would use maybe, I don't know, 90% of the time or 80% of the time in your app. You just navigate from one link to another, and Turbo Drive would handle the navigation. So next up, it's Turbo Frames. So what is this like whole decomposing complex pages thing? So going back to these examples. So in Turbo Frames, so as you can see in the body of this page, I have highlighted in blue something called a Turbo Frame. So this is part of the Turbo library, and it's a custom element that encompasses a little bit of HTML, right? And the cool thing about it is that any navigation or form submission that happens within this block of HTML, it's only gonna swap that little bit of HTML when something happens. So as an example here, you can see that I have page one and an href that says titles edit. So I'm gonna edit the title of page one. Then the response that comes from the server is the following. So it's the whole page for the edit the title page, but it also has a Turbo frame. So what this is saying is, okay, I received this whole response, but I only care about what's within this matching frame. So Turbo's gonna see that, and it's gonna say, okay, I can see that there's a matching frame. I'm only gonna change this little bit of HTML. So it's not gonna replace the whole page. It's just gonna navigate within that Turbo frame and just replace the content within the matching Turbo frame. And then we get the final state of the page, which is the same page we started with, but with different information within that Turbo frame, which is a form to edit the title. So how does that look in the app I just built? So let's hope this sort of doesn't work. Let me see. So what we're seeing here is this video playing. To the left, we have the navigation that we just saw before. And down here, we have some products that we want to purchase from these very lovely brands that make Italian food. And this product section is a Turbo frame. So whatever navigation happens within this Turbo frame is going to be constrained to this section of HTML. So I'm going to click next page and next page. And I'm going to click page one. And you can see the video keeps playing. So I'm not navigating to a whole new page. I'm just navigating within this bit of HTML. So that's a Turbo frame. You constrain navigation and decompose your page. Something interesting, I'll show you maybe at the end when technology doesn't like trump the presentation, but Turbo frames can also be lazy loaded. So if I refresh this page, you may see a little bit of a glimpse of a skeleton like behind it. So let's try that. Refresh the page. Maybe it was too fast, but maybe you caught that there was skeleton. We can do an example of that a little bit later on. So that is Turbo frames. So what about Turbo streams? So Turbo streams deliver live page changes to your DOM. So in the most simple example, you have an AJAX request from a form, and that the response to that form can be delivered through WebSockets to any connected clients. So this is one of the most like mind-blowing example, but it doesn't have to be WebSockets. The transport medium can be anything. It can be just a regular response, not via WebSockets, but via HTTP. But in general, this is like the most interesting use case. So how does this work? We will check, should be seeing the HTML again. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, it's all working. It's good.
All right, cool. So let's say we're in this page one example again, and we have a form to create a message with some text, right? And then the server will return a response when I post this message, this form. it's going to return a new element, a new custom element called a turbo string. So when the response comes from the server and gets executed in the DOM, you can see that in this div with the, sorry, it should have been an ID, with an ID of messages, now gets this new message appended because, again, going back a little bit, the action was to append to a DOM element with the ID of messages. So this happens over here. The cool thing that I mentioned before is that this can be delivered via WebSockets and can be used to do like some interesting like live and multi-user stuff. So the whole point of showing you these two screens, again, I'm gonna play the video today. But I have to be on the same page. So carbonara, let's navigate to carbonara over here. And I'm gonna play the video so you can see that this is now like some gimmick that's below the page. And to the right, there's a chat, right? So I can say, hello, Roro. And if you, like this is gonna return a response to both browsers at the same time because I've configured this to stream the response to any connected users. So if I hit enter, I have a chat on two different windows. So to the right, I'm in Safari, to the left, I'm in Chrome. So I can respond, hello, hello back. And then I get a very, very cool chat system. And this is scoped to this live stream. So if, for example, I go to this other video over here of Age of Empires, and I chat over here, it's hello, this is a totally different chat. So the responses to this form submission are scoped to this specific live stream. All right. And the final piece of all of this, so far we've seen a lot of interaction, but it's very constrained to what the library does. So you can navigate within a frame, you can perform navigation with Thrive, and you can update little pieces of the page with streams. But that's not everything that you need to do in a production-ready app. You need a little bit of JavaScript sprinkles to bring stuff to life. And that is what Stimulus is for. So Stimulus was created in 2017 by the team at Basecamp, similar to all of Hotwire, of the same as all of Hotwire. And Stimulus is designed to just enhance the static server rendered HTML that you already have. So whatever HTML you have is enhanced by Stimulus. So it's not meant to be a full-on framework like React or Vue or anything like that. It's just meant to enhance your applications using JavaScript. And I'm gonna stop sharing just to prevent things from happening, from going wrong. So sharing my screen again. And in this page, there are only two little bits JavaScript of Stimulus like working. So the first one is that every time I send a message, I'm clearing the form field. So that is JavaScript. That doesn't make sense to do like server-side render. So this is a good task for JavaScript to take over. So just clearing the field. And the next one is scrolling the container. So as you can see, anytime I put a new message, the container scrolls to show that last message. So those are the only two bits of custom JavaScript that I had to write for this whole application. And I can show you the code for that. So in my JavaScript controllers, I have two controllers. So Stimulus is like the core abstraction of Stimulus is controllers. So you always work with controllers. And controllers control a little bit of HTML. So for this form controller, this is the only JavaScript that I have to write. I only really need this one. So it's actually just one JavaScript function to reset the form. And the other one is the message controller that says that whenever I appear in the DOM, I want you to scroll me into view. So the message controls how it's displayed. And it seems like magic, but that's the only JavaScript that this whole application has, like custom JavaScript. All the other stuff, it's handled automatically by Turbo. And yeah, so that is Stimulus. So maybe we can open this up for questions, because I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff that you've built with like more complex frameworks that you think that you maybe are not able to do in a server-side render application built with Turbo. So, and anything that you imagine you wouldn't be able to do with this? Open to the floor. Or some interaction that you build that you say that you've said, yeah, it's impossible to build this like server-side render.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it's hard because there's a bunch of stuff that you can build with these techniques. It can take you really, really, really far. And the whole point of asking that question is like, what's the ecosystem like at the moment to build reactive Rails applications? So this is a term that I've seen turn around lately, which is what is reactive Rails and what libraries are there to make reactive Rails applications? So this term, it's being used in the community by people who are trying to push as much stuff back to the server, but still keeping the interaction level very high and speed very high of your interactions. So apart from Hotwire, there are a bunch of other libraries that you can use to enhance your applications to make them more reactive. So one of those is Stimulus Reflex. And actually the article that I mentioned before was written by one of the maintainers of Stimulus Reflex. And Stimulus Reflex uses Stimulus underneath to create a different paradigm of interacting with your page and of modifying your page. I'm going to go too deep into that. I know that we had maybe a talk about it a few months ago. But Stimulus is one of these other libraries that's attempting to make the Rails ecosystem much friendlier to reactivity. And I've seen another one. I've never tried this one. It's called MateStack, that I believe that uses Vue underneath. So you serve Vue components, Vue as in VUE, Vue components from the server. I don't really remember exactly how it works, but this is another one of those interesting approaches to making stuff rendered from the server, but very reactive and very interactive. So that is it for this presentation. Thank you very much. Gracias. And I'm sorry about the technical issues. I don't know what happened. I think I'm gonna have to change my computer. But thank you so much. Are there any questions though?
Thanks, Juli. I have a question, but
yeah.
Anyone else? The Turbo Frames IDs, for example, are these like are they kind of like global in scope? So you have to come up with like I guess like a whole naming system sort of thing, or are they just like scope to I don't know, like I don't know if it's a module scope or something like that, you know?
Yeah. So this is a very good question, because IDs, if you read like the HTML spec, IDs should be unique and updated. And that is something that I think that's been forgotten a little bit because of the newer technologies that we use, like React. But going back to basics, IDs should be unique. So you should definitely come up with a strategy to make your IDs unique within your application. Rails has a super interesting helper called DOM-ID that for any active record or active model that you give it, it will give you a unique ID for that instance. So helpers like that will definitely help you achieve like unique IDs that are attached to your Activator instances.
Thanks.
Sure.
I was wondering, have you tried using one of the other ones, like Stimulus Reflex, for example?
I'm going to turn this. You can see better now. Yes, I've used Stimulus Reflex, not that much to be very proficient in it, but I have. And it has a very different paradigm. So
yeah, I guess the reason I was asking is because I've used it as well, and the paradigm shift for me was I found quite difficult actually to get a grasp of it. I was wondering what your sort of feel was between the two, and what your preference would be.
So I come from a background of building very, very, very completely RESTful applications as much as I can. That's like the technique that I use. And because of that, Turbo makes a lot of sense to me, right? But there are scenarios where you don't want to use a RESTful approach to building your application. Maybe you want to do something more like RPC style. And that's where Stimulus Reflex becomes probably a better tool for the job. Also, when many things change in a single page, you could potentially benefit more from using something like Stimulus Reflex and like the underlying library that it has that's called table ready. So maybe in different scenarios, different tools will be like better. What I've seen is that you can achieve probably 80% or 85 or 90% of your application using just Hotwire and Turbo. And maybe the last 10%, you're gonna want something with a little bit more maybe power or maybe a different style of coding. That's when you reach for something like Stimulus Reflex, or even just building a full-on React page like alongside all of your server-side running application. So the beauty of this is that it allows you to work within a spectrum where most of your pages could be simple pages rendered from the server that you navigate with Turbo Drive. Then you get a little bit of interactivity with frames and streams. And maybe when things become too interactive and too complex, then you start reaching out to more complex and powerful tools like Stimulus Reflex or Made Stack, or even building a complete section of your application using React. But the interesting thing is that you have a choice.
Sweet, that's cool. I kind of wondered about that because I have been wanting to try Hotwire, and I tried Stimulus Reflex. I'm like, damn, this is like, it's really powerful, but it's definitely a big change. Whereas the stuff you just demonstrated seems very much more along the lines of REST based applications. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We can walk through the code if you want. I don't know, maybe we stop recording and then walk through the code if you want to see how it's actually done. I didn't want to fill the presentation with a lot of code because I wanted to keep it simple to showcase the concepts, but we can go through the code if you want.
I mean, a little bit of code would be nice, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll put my, maybe we can do a reaction. Wait, thumb up. Anyone wants to see a little bit of code?
Yeah, sure.
Any thumbs up? Oh yeah, we got thumb up, thumb up. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. I'm not gonna use my presentation software anymore because I'm very sad with it today. I'm gonna use something else. Just like sharing my screen. Okay. So
are you using the free plan? That's maybe why they were like,
probably they're trolling me or something. I don't know. Okay, cool. So let's look at some code. Let me just exit this presentation. Maybe I can't see anything. Cool. So in this application, the main page you're seeing over here, it's the show page of the live stream. So if I go to live stream show, zoom a little bit. This is the main page. So again, because I made this app like yesterday for this presentation, it's not like production level code, so don't judge too hard. But this page is composed of mainly 3 parts. So this that renders the bar to the left. So recommended live streams are just like this menu to the left of all the live streams happening right now. This middle section, which is the actual content of the show page, which also includes the product section and the messages to the right. All right, so again, for context, streams, live streams to the left, the actual video and show page in the center, and messages to the right. So in order to enable Turbo Drive, you don't need to really do anything. As long as Turbo is working in your application, you don't have to like annotate your HTML with anything for Drive to work. So any navigation, this is just handled by Turbo Drive with me not having to think about it. So it just hijacks the regular HTML navigation and performs at Turbo Drive navigation. So that's probably the simplest, and this is what this is the actual spiritual successor of TurboLinks. This is all that TurboLinks did in the past. Right. So next up, let's talk about Turbo Frames. So Turbo Frames are our live stream products. So in here, as you can see, this is my ID. So this is the live stream product. This is the frame that will encompass my, this is the ID, sorry, of the frame that will encompass whatever comes in. So now that we're not in the presentation, I can go to the products controller. And I'm going to do something here. I'm going to put a sleep over here. 4 seconds. And I'm going to reload the page to show you something. So you see that skeleton that I built there? This is one of the true magic things that Turbo Frames does. It allows you to decompose your page, and if need be, allows you to lazy load that content if you want it. So over here in the show page, I'm going to go to, sorry, not to the show page. I'm going to go to the products index. And you might think in a regular like application, when you navigate to the index of something, it's going to navigate to a whole new page. And we actually sort of can do that. So let me show you an example. So if I command click here to open this new tab, I can actually, this is going to take 2 seconds, 4 seconds if I put this loop there. But this is actually a complete HTML page, right? And if I go, I'm going to remove this loop for a second. And if I like put stuff over here, so H1, hello, row, and reload this page, you can see that there is content here, right? But because this content is outside of the Turbo frame, it's not going to be loaded here. So if I refresh this page, I no longer see hello row, because remember, Turbo Frames is only gonna take the contents of the Turbo or of the matching Turbo frame and swap the content. So it doesn't care about anything that happens outside of it. And this is one of the interesting tricks or like concepts about Turbo, is that your application, it's for the most part still a CRUD application. So you will, if you build like a live stream products index, it would probably sort of look something like this. But then if you put it inside of another page, that's how you sort of think of the decomposition, like decomposing your page. So it's an index of products, but it happens to be like inserted in another page, which is the show page for the live stream. And in this very particular case, I decided for it to be lazy loaded. So this source attribute, what's telling us is go fetch the index page for live stream products for this live stream. And when the result comes in, put it in here. But while that happens, show this skeleton so that I can show my user something that's like happening in the background. So if I put this link back in, you'll be able to see that in action. So skeleton, skeleton, skeleton for 4 seconds, and then the content comes in.
And you build the skeleton, right? It didn't come for free, right?
You built what, sorry? The skeleton?
Like you coded those skeleton, right? It
Oh yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. I built like a partial for the product skeleton.
Okay.
By the way, this is all Tailwind, so just slap some classes over there. So that's the whole deal about frames. It's like the thing that is most interesting to me is that it's the same way I've coded for years and years, just RESTful applications, indexes of things, but I can like build smaller indexes and compose pages with those indexes or those shows or whatever you need, right? That's what's like the most interesting to me. And so, any questions so far? I don't want to go too fast.
Yeah, what comes back over the wire when you click on the next page button? Like what's the content there? What does the turbo frame tag method return?
Actually, it's gonna like the return of that call is the whole page. So let's do this. Next page. Page 2, response. You see hello Roro. Let me just zoom in a little bit. It's the whole page. It doesn't return the template because Rails, like the Rails wrapper for Turbo, adds some optimizations where they don't return the layout because you don't really need it, but it returns the whole page. But when Turbo sees the response, it says, okay, it's a Turbo frame response. So I'm gonna ignore everything that's outside and just gonna focus on whatever the matching Turbo frame is asking me to do. So if I, let's go elements, let's look at this over here. Over here, Turbo frame ID live stream products. So it's gonna look for an element just like the one in the response and just swap everything that's inside. So again, it's as if you were building another index, like a scaffolded index for something. I actually used a scaffold to build this whole application. I took it a lot, but it's a Rails scaffold. Yeah, so any more questions about frames or drive? So and then we'll go into streams.
So my brain's a bit slow. So the three kind of areas, right? Not the sidebar on the left, but the kind of video and the product frame and then the nav bar, the chat bar on the right, they're all kind of connected together because they're all on that one index page. Is that right?
Yeah, so like if you see over here, like the only piece of HTML that's lazy loaded, so that comes in a second response, is this one. But the rest is completely served from the server.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Can you have a button in one frame that updates a different frame?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was kind of trying to wrap my head around. And
yes, you can.
How did they talk to each other?
I don't have an example of that here. Maybe I can spin up another application where I do that. But a great example of that is doing modals. So you can have a Turbo frame that's a modal that sits like maybe like, let's say it could sit like as a sibling to the body, like as the last child of the body. And then you could say, when I click, let's say login, bring the, let's say sessions new HTML, but put it inside of the modal frame. I can show you that after we see this application. But you can do that, and you can do that for sidebars, modals, other parts of the page. Like the sky's the limit.
Nice.
Any other questions about frames?
Is there anything that you've discovered that you can't do?
Good question.
Well, not yet, but I haven't built anything too complex. Well, by today's standards, because this like Twitch thing, it's pretty complex. Like it has a chat function, it plays video, it has like scrolling, like recommended products. It's pretty complex in a sense, but no, I haven't built anything too complex to say, no, I can't do it with Turbo. But like, there probably is, like, and that's why Stimulus Reflex and other tools like exist, because there is a limit. I mean, probably you can do everything, but maybe you shouldn't do everything. Maybe you should stop at some point and say, okay, maybe this is better suited with Stimulus Reflex, or better suited as a React application. So as an example, there's this story from a product called Podia. I don't know if you know about that product, where they had this like website builder, and they went like all the way like building it with Stimulus Reflex. And like midway through that, they started like seeing that it was too complex even for Stimulus Reflex, and that the best experience for their customers would be to build it as a React application. So their whole application is like Turbo and Stimulus and whatever, and just the website builder is built in React. So again, coming back to the spectrum, is when do you really need something as complex as React? And when you need it, then you use the full power of React. But not for like navigating through a page, like to change your name or to change your password. Like that's not what React's like best suited for, at least in my opinion, but we get into other territories. But cool, so that's how frames and Drive work. So how about the chat? So I'm gonna click through to this messages thing. And this is probably the most magical of all the things that I'm doing, and probably the most cringe-worthy for a lot of people, because it has to do with a lot of conventions in Rails, and it has to do with putting stuff in the model, which I know that it's like a very spicy topic. So the two things that I have here is an ID of messages, so a div where all my messages get appended, and that's why I have render messages over here. And this directive called turbo stream from. So what is this doing? Let me open the message class, the message model. And I was attempting to do something before we started, but didn't have enough time. So what is this doing? So this tag is opening a WebSocket connection via action cable that scopes any messages from the backend to this live stream. It does so with a like tamper safe, like hashed ID of the live stream, so you cannot like tamper with it. But essentially, this is creating a WebSocket connection for this specific page for this specific live stream. So if we go over here, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to see this here, but if I refresh this page, yep, you can see that there is now a connection with action cable. And yeah, I'm not sure what else I can show you here, but it connects this specific page to a specific channel for this live stream. And the only thing I had to do is use this broadcast to live stream. So what this does is, based on all of Rails's convention over configuration stuff, it's gonna append any new message to an ID called messages, because it's the plural of this class, and it's gonna broadcast it to any channels for this specific live stream. So again, when I navigate here, I navigate to a live stream. So I'm opening a connection to this specific live stream. And when something happens in this live stream regarding messages, it's gonna send any new messages to the live stream, or if I remove a message, it's gonna destroy that message from the live stream. And yeah, it's gonna perform anything. So if I update, it's gonna update it. So just by using this directive and knowing the conventions of these two things, I can very easily create a chat system. So if I go, let's Here's the example again. If I go to this same live stream and chat over here, hello. Then I have it on the other side. Again, like this app is like very, very bare bones. So you need authentication. There's some extra steps you need to do to make sure that you can have authentication within the cable connection. But for the most part, this is all what you have to do to have this kind of application. And actually, like if you navigate here, I'm gonna see if I can send you this. You should be able to type some messages and chat with me. So I opened the tunnel, but I didn't want to use it live in the presentation because I don't think it was like very organized. But now that we're here, we can do it.
That's exciting. I'm navigating there.
Woohoo!
Oh,
There are no names or anything, but I can see stuff coming. Oh. Yay.
takes a long time to load on my laptop. Oh my God.
Crazy, right? And like it's so little code that it feels like cheating. And as everything with Rails, these are like these are incredibly sharp tools, right? So it's very easy to make a mess, but it's also the beauty of it. Like it's so cool, and it's so easy that it just inspires you to do a lot of cool stuff.
Just to wait, am I? Yeah, just clarify the live stream name. That's just a name that you came up with, or that's like a reserved word?
Oh no, not at all. Like because I built like a Twitch clone.
Yeah,
like,
you just call it live stream, right?
Yeah, my model,
Yeah.
My record is called a live stream.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, okay, cool. Yeah. Doesn't let you execute scripts. And that's sort of at the core of all of this is that before, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the JS ERB responses. That was like plain old sending like JavaScript from the server and executing it on the browser. And that became a security risk a few years ago. So it's no longer an alternative. So that's why these techniques came to be, because we needed to come up with something better. And again, if you go to another one, then it's a new chat, new messages. Like, unless you follow me through, you won't see them because it's code to that live stream. Like the action cable channel is code to the live stream. Yeah, there you are. And so one of the things that I'm exploring at the moment is like the whole premise of adding more stuff to the model is something that many people hate. I'm starting to understand how to embrace it in large applications, and I'm probably going to do a talk about that in the future. But this is like actually just a module that is inserted into this class. So by using the specific turbo module that's called like turbo broadcastable, I think, you go in here, it's just a concern that you include in your models. So if you include turbo broadcastable in some model, you can make it broadcastable and you don't have to use your active record model, because maybe you think it's too much, maybe you have to do a bunch of these for different like parents or like streams of messages. So maybe you want to do something different, maybe you want to keep it in their own classes. It's doable. There's not many documentations or not many articles yet on the internet for this, but it's totally doable. So the library underneath is prepared for you to decompose it and remove it from your active records and place it in other types of classes. So it's as sharp as you want it to be. Any questions about streams or anything else? All right. I think that is it then.